boy, I can't help it. Even when I'm the only one in the booth, I still love that sound when I hear it because it means that we are in for another episode of the Rec Poker Podcast. This month, we are going into the Rec Room. So I don't know if some of our loyal listeners will follow along. We have the Wrecking Crew over at Rec Poker here, where the Wrecking Crew is made up of various Rec Poker peeps who want to take their love for poker and their knowledge of poker to the next level and share it with the world. And so once a month, we take a premium Rec Poker member. We pair them up with a Wrecking Crew member of their choice, and they spend a little time in the Rec Room just talking about poker and whatever interests them. This month, I was the Wrecking Crew member chosen to deal with a question from a premium member. And the premium member that I will be joined with is Troy Chapman, Chapo in the forums. And he's calling in from Australia, one of our lovely premium members who's a big part of our book studies and some of the other fun stuff we do here at Rec.Poker. So we're just going to cue into our study session. And we are just talking about game selection and how Troy is going to put a plan together for how he can study effectively and reach his poker goals. So please listen along, and I hope you enjoy. And come on over to rec.poker, and you could just email Jim at rec.poker. And if you're a premium member there, tell me what you'd like to talk about and with whom. We'll set you up, and you can have a fun time, just like Troy here in the Rec Room. Okay, talk soon.
How they play. So I get very frustrated with those sort of games. So I try to play the bigger events. Usually what happens I've found over time is that once the buy-in gets to $100, it weeds out a lot of those sort of players.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you get to a point where it's a freeze out, and then you know you're going for a long day, it just makes the players who are a little bit more casual about the whole thing stay at home, and the guys who are a bit more keen on their poker go to those games. That's my experience.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think, game selection is so important, and, knowing the kind of assumptions that you can make about the player field, I think is really important too. So being in a tournament where, the people are going to be, even if they're like, they're going to be more predictable, which is a good thing.
Yep.
Even if it's what's predictable about them is that they're playing technically sound poker.
Yep.
So there's, I understand that, because that's the kind of those are the kind of players that you want to be crafting exploits against, and that you want to be developing your strategy against. And it's hard to play against players that don't really take it seriously, because it's hard to make good assumptions about their ranges and like what
That's
their
right.
actions mean and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a tension that I think a lot of people feel, because it's definitely the case that those less intentional players, they're definitely worse players. So there's like, you probably have a bigger edge just by playing disciplined poker with tighter ranges in those games and letting them kind of spew off. But that's not really, we're not recreational poker players because we just want to sit there and play the top 10% of hands all the time. Like you could write an algorithm to just go and play only good cards, and that's not really what we like about playing poker. So so I think it makes a lot of sense to be picking the game where you get to express the edge that you want to express on the field, where you get to kind of draw up your opponents in a way that you can exploit.
And ultimately have a better time doing it, right? Because what I find is when the games are more gamble orientated, because it's like, I worked out, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's about 35 hands an hour you can play live. That's the stuff I see online.
Yep.
So if you're there for 4 or 5 hours, you've got a chance at maybe 120 to 150 hands, and that's if you're there right to the final few players in the field.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody just wants to go there and play hands.
Right.
So being able to sit back and have an opening range of 9% under the gun, it's just not a known thing, right?
Right.
So the population just wants to go and have some fun, where I'm now getting to a point where I suppose one of my questions to you was, how do you then start to choose more games orientated around, I suppose, the longer term goals, which I was hopefully in my email I was a little bit, I was fairly clear on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like this email. So thank you
Okay.
for all this good information. And I asked you a few little questions before we got started, and I really like what you sent me back here. I think I really like your attitude about poker, like your approach to poker. And I'm a really competitive person too, and I bring that into poker 100%. And it's
Yep.
part, um, so tell me a little bit about, so you used to be competitive in sports, so you brought a lot of competition from your sports life into poker. Tell me a little bit about the sports that you played and what that's been like for you.
So now retired, but I did. So I was on the Australian karate team and used to fight overseas and things like that. So
Cool.
everything that I was doing there, and I ended up having a crack at what division was it? Fitness model. I went
Oh
and did
yeah.
like a bodybuilding show and stuff like that. Um, and everything that I seemed to do was very process orientated.
Hmm.
So I used to have a coach who was a psychologist, and he said that basically you can set someone like you want on a path as long as they can see the steps like in a recipe, they eventually get to where they need to be.
Yes.
I'm not very I'm not a very creative person. I'm a financial advisor by trade. So basically, if I can see how it maps out, I can do the maths around it. I'm a fairly numbers orientated person. I'm just creating crafty lines and things like that
Hmm.
within poker is not something that comes uh, natural to me. My thought will be whether or not I see an opportunity there on something I've already read,
Yes.
and right, that to me is how that makes sense,
Yes.
not coming up with something funky on the spot.
Yeah,
So
that's very familiar to me too. I'm also someone who's best starting with something and then kind of refining it and making it my own. Like I'm more of an editor than a creator, more of a refiner, and I
mhm,
like having sort of that starting place already laid out. That does make it easier for me. And I think the more you, and I know you mentioned here how much you enjoy the process of studying, and I think that when you do have that kind of roadmap for success and you know what you're going to be building on in the next course, like that kind of thing, then it gives you both sort of like a context with which to work with the information that you're taking in,
mhm.
and also kind of like a confidence to plan ahead a little bit and to like invest yourself in that current stage because you can see how that's going to build on itself in the future. And I think stuff like developing lines like post flop lines and betting patterns and stuff like that is such a cool thing to be able to dig into once you've kind of like set the parameters so that you're not just lost in this world of like, oh my god, what do I even think about next.
Mhm.
That's actually what the next rec poker study seminar that we're doing is about betting lines, and I'm
Okay.
really looking forward to that. So that's one thing I think you'll enjoy. That comes out in March, early March. So that'll
Yep.
be something, and
After
I
the
think
free
you
crash
can,
course.
yeah, and come in. I think if the timing works out for you, you should come and join the recording for that because you could ask some questions. Chris
Okay.
puts this whole presentation together, so that's going to be fun. I think no matter what. Um, so I love all this information. You sent me some great notes here. You're living in Australia, and unlike some of us, you get to play live poker fairly regularly. So I'm very jealous already of that. Congratulations. Um, and you say you get to play about 2 to 3 times per week live, and that you jump online occasionally from time to time, mostly just to try some new spots, to put a little volume in, and to get some familiarity. Because that is one big difference, is that if you're serious about learning, um, it's hard to get the volume of hands in live, as you pointed out, just because, uh, you know, 25, 30, 35 hands an hour. Um, it's just hard to get that kind of volume in, but you get to spend more time thinking about every decision. You get to, really steep yourself in the process of playing live. And of course, there's so much more information available to you live when you get to explore tells on people, and you get to know the opponents a lot better.
Mhm.
So um, I like this concept of So I reviewed what you said about where you'd been learning before. The post-flop workbook by Split Suit's great. I've heard really good things about that course, the core course from Redchip as well. I haven't really been through that myself. Um, and I do see you all the time in the Rec Poker study groups and some of the other learning materials that we do here. And I like the idea of kind of planning for, it feels like you're already a very thoughtful player. You have some good goals. You really just need to kind of focus on what are the areas that study will provide the biggest return for you. Like where can you
Biggest
get the
bang for buck.
yeah, but yeah, that's right. And it really is
Yeah.
like time is a valuable resource, right? I mean, like you're a small
Mm-hmm.
business owner, so you don't have an infinite number of hours each week to spend playing or studying poker. So um, studying is an important part of it. Like obviously we all just want to play poker all the time, but building in some regular study I think is really important. And then, choosing the right stuff so that you can get the most out of it is also really important because your time is a valuable resource.
Mm.
So
And I've found just on that, I've
yeah.
found some stuff that has been very overwhelming because there's so much content out there, like
Mm.
outside of the rec poker world,
Mm-hmm.
that is there's just you could be lost for years, slowly going through things. I found one of the courses, probably won't say it out loud, but one of the things I found on there in regards to one of the courses I found to be really complicated. And was very much driven towards online players. And
Mm.
I know the techniques and the skills obviously transition from across both fields. Like if you know how to look for a squeeze spot, you know how to do that online and live, right?
Sure.
So I get that, but the I thought that course was fairly expensive, but the was very much designed, very technical.
Mm-hmm.
I had really had trouble getting my head wrapped around it, and then being able to find those little bits within those courses to then say, well, tonight I'm going to try to work
Yeah.
on this particular part. So you end up spending, I don't know, so many man hours in trying to actually get your way through a course. And then at the end of it, I'm going, hang on, well, I don't actually really think I've actually changed anything
Mm-hmm.
in regards to how I'm playing, what I'm looking for. I've just digested a whole bunch of stuff like watching a movie or
Right.
reading a book. But at the end of it,
Right.
I don't really know if anything's actually been achieved.
Yeah, and that's a common issue, I think, because people get very there's so many ways to learn kind of passively these days, whether it's through podcasts or just watching training videos or things like that. And you said it exactly correctly. You're kind of you're absorbing it, but you're not really thinking, you're not really coming up, you're not incorporating it into your actual strategy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
when you're there in the table at the moment, um, often I'm what often can happen is you get in your rote, your normal rhythm of play, and then while you're driving home from the tournament you lost, you're like, oh yeah, that I remember I should have done that thing from that video I saw or something. And it's like, well, that's no good to you now. Right. So so part of it is like, yeah, as you point out, you already know, having a plan for the study, what you're going to study, what you're going to try and get out of it, how you're going to relate that into your play.
Mm-hmm.
So the first part of it, I think, is choosing what kind of study you want to take on, and like what is the medium that is best for you, what's going to help you retain the information the best, and what's a real sustainable, realistic study plan when it comes to, you've got so many days in the week, you want to play on some of those, you've got a lot of other time constraints. Can you build out, 2 or 3 study days or half an hour each day or something like that, that works for you? And you don't have to stick with that forever, but I think if you have a chance to sort of line up like a month in advance and say, okay, these are the days I know I don't have time to do anything, I'm just going to work on my real life and get through the day on these days. These days I want to go play on these tournaments in this local card room. These days, I'm just going to build in an hour of study time each day or something like that, and then stick to that for a month. Part of it is it just takes that repeated effort to kind of gain some momentum and to train your brain into like, okay, now I'm here in this place where I always do my studying, I'm kind of priming my mind to retain this information properly. It's part of my routine, my rhythm. That's one thing, just because we're all human and we need to make it as easy on ourselves as possible to take this stuff in and to make it stick, right?
Yep.
So that's a big part of it, is like the setting, giving yourself a repeatable routine where you're always going to be open-minded and you're thinking about things. And then whatever it is that you're studying, and we'll get into that in a bit, active learning as opposed to passive learning, where you're actually taking notes. Start a journal, whether it's, I'm a pen and paper guy, but it's better if people use like an Excel document or a Google sheet or something like that, where they can go back and review their notes from before, or like search by keyword or something like that. And there's a bunch of different ways to organize that. Sky Matsuhashi has some good resources. They're free if you go to poker strategy, or no, if you go to smartpokerstudy.com. He's a process guy as well, and so he leans on like workbooks and having the same system in place often, so that you're repeating the process but with new information. He's got a couple really good ways to track and take notes and things like that. And Split Suit also, who I know you're familiar with from the program you referenced here, he's also really good at that kind of step by step, use this worksheet, track. He's got there's a hand reading one of his that I think is free.
The hand reading course. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, that one's really good. I honestly, I think that might be a good place for you to start, or to put on your early list, because it's exactly the way you're talking about it. It's a process based. It's something that you can do at the table in your head, roughly, but it's going to be so much easier doing it on the pen and paper with it, or in a PDF, or however you like to work. And I think the process of hand ranging is one of the most important things that any recreational or professional poker player can be spending their time on. Particularly competitive guys like us, like we're going to already have that instinct to kill, at the table, like once we feel like we are comfortable with the math, which I know won't be a problem for you with your math background, having a way to kind of just use an existing framework to come to easier decisions at the table. Then you've got the confidence to make that play, right? Where, because a lot of poker is how we profit from those in between strength cards, those hands that are not like, everyone does really well with pocket aces. Everyone loses with 2-7.
It's an easy game, right? It's an easy game if you had aces, you flop a set. This is what I laugh to people about. Usually played that well, you flopped a set. Right. It's not that hard a game.
Yeah. Life's pretty easy for Chris Jones when he's playing pocket fives and all he sees is fives for days. It's a nice life,
it's
right?
It's not a hard game. The hard game is playing 7-8 suited on the cutoff, and the flop not hitting you.
Yeah.
But your range is better than what the caller's range is in the blinds, and then starting to work out that.
Yes.
That's that to me I have interest in. Rather than and trying to start to work out, when I look at my cards, okay, every hand from this point that I would be playing, this is how it plays.
Yes.
Yeah. So I believe I've moved on from just looking at the two cards in front of me and saying, so every hand I play, from this position, this is how it starts. And then locally, I have people that then go, well, I didn't realize you'd have 8-9 suited there. And then it starts to sort of all fall into place.
That's a fun feeling too, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
It? Yeah. Like, I know that's part of the things I love about poker is, it sounds bad, but it's like beating people, like.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's important that people are taking it seriously and trying their best, because I don't know, I won't speak for you, but for me, it's only really fun to beat people when they're trying their best to beat me, And I like,
but it's so much easier for someone to say, well, I wasn't really trying, it didn't
right,
really worry me.
right,
So what victory is there in that?
right. Yes.
Yeah.
So okay, so I think right off the bat, I think we're already finding some good. And the other thing is, like, this is a lifetime goal, right? Like, for
Yep.
some of this
Yep.
stuff, we're going to improve immediately, but for some of it, part of the fun is that we get to study this game for the rest of our lives. Like, I hope I never solve poker. I just hope I get to keep studying it and getting better week by week. And like, everyone has their own version of success. I'm not planning. I have no interest in being a high stakes professional poker player, but I want to play in good games, and I want to be a profitable player. I want to be a thoughtful, strategic player who takes people apart, and and I feel like that's what you want to. You want to be a winning player.
Yeah.
You want to make money with it. And I think that's a lot of the satisfaction that we're going to get out of it is.
Yeah. Yep. But I was quite upfront in that email.
Yes.
Where I said that I have no aspirations of being a professional player.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy what I do for a living. What I want to do is be able to be, and I worked out a level of buy-in that I would like to be able to go to a game where it cost me $550 Australian.
Mm-hmm.
The occasional one a year up here was about 1,500, where they do it. It's a big tournament, but I would like to be able to go to a 550 game, sit down, and not be outmatched.
Yes.
And be competitive the whole way through the day.
Yep.
To me, if I can do that, I would consider that to be a point at which I could say, not that I've conquered it, but I've got to a point where I'm very happy with my game. But if I go now to a 330 buy-in, which I was talking to a couple of people about a little while ago, I sat down at the table. The guy next to on my left had just won the Six Max. A couple of guys to his left were like major winners in the region not long ago. The guy to the left had just binked it for $30-something thousand the night before. And I sat down at the game. No one knew me because it was down in a different part of Sydney.
Right.
And I was just outmatched from the get-go, especially when at the local games I play, I'm usually the most aggressive. I'm known as an aggressive player. I get there and I played like a timid schoolgirl because I had they were 3-betting me like crazy, and I'm just completely outgunned, outmatched. So
yeah, and
I would like to get to a game where I'm competitive like that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great goal. And I think the more, part of that's just experience. Part of it's just the confidence of your studies, knowing that you don't have to second guess yourself in this spot, at the table. And part of it's just playing a few more of those tournaments too, and the shine rubs off some of those guys pretty quick too.
That's it.
So yeah, so I like this idea. You're kind of looking forward. You're thinking like, this is what these are the kinds of games I want to be playing in. This is how often I want to be playing. And I think you're right. It's valuable to have it split up a little bit. So it's like, okay, I'm playing the 100 to 300 range games, and I've got this 500 one that I take a shot, once a month or something, and then I've got this 1,500 one that I do once or twice a year, because something like that. Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
that'd be perfect.
So I think that's very manageable, and I think being one of the great things about our situation is that we are recreational players, and like, the pleasure that we take in the game is a part of it, and we also don't have to be so married to our bankroll as a professional player does. So you and I are both small business owners. If we brick 3 months worth of tournaments, we're not going to be too happy about it, but we still get to put food on the table. So there's an element of like the pleasure that we get to take in it that I think should allow us to relax our bankroll requirements a little bit, as long as we're.
I played a couple of games last year at Star City, which is our casino in Sydney, and I ran deep in both tournaments. Didn't cash, but I came home and I said to my wife, I had a ball.
Yes.
So And so I got the utility out of my buy-ins just by the fact I was down there playing at the casino. There were a few pro poker players that were almost guest celebrity type guys. Went up, had a photo with them, had a bit of fun, had a couple of beers. It was just fun. And even though it might have cost me, I don't know, $500 or $600 over the weekend, the utility I got from it was great.
Oh yeah, and try doing anything you love for a weekend and spending less than $500 or $600 these days, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Entertainment, costs money. We're in the privileged position where sometimes our entertainment can actually make money for us. That. You're never going to make money going to the movies all weekend.
No.
Right. So,
yeah.
Well, I don't know the kind of movies you're going to, but, but I love that. And I feel like we're just the luckiest bastards in the world, to be honest with you. So, so let's take advantage of that, right? Like God. So that would be part of it. Part of it, I think, would be being realistic and forward thinking about game selection, bankroll management, getting your wife on board. Like everybody has to be on the same team for this kind of thing, and that not only for the money of it, but also you're going to be gone, for some of that time, and you need that strong support network at home. No matter what you do, but certainly in the poker life, you need someone to come home and complain to about the bad beats and that kind of stuff. And one piece of advice that I always look back on that someone gave me was, if you're out playing poker and you win, bring home flowers for your wife. And if you're out playing poker and you lose, bring home flowers for your wife. Make sure that it's something that is positively reinforced at home, and she'll never complain that you're out having a good time and potentially winning millions, right? I mean, that's the big fun. So, all right, I don't want to get into your bankroll stuff on the air here, because I think that's kind of private information. So we can get together again and talk about the specifics of what that would look like. You lucky bugger down there playing live poker in Australia, man, I'm so jealous. And so let's just talk a little bit then about what actual study resources would be good for you, what your kind of timetables like. So you're a small business owner. To me, that means that it's hard to punch out sometimes. So like you're kind of on the clock all the time.
Yeah, that would be correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for example, when stuff comes up, I just book it 2 weeks in advance.
Yes.
So my diary works. If it's not in the diary, it doesn't exist.
Yes.
And in 2 weeks' time, you've got the flexibility to start adding things in. So, for example, the book study groups we do with Rob, they were booked out every fortnight.
Yes.
And I never missed one. So, and that's right in the middle of our day. So the recce's today, that's been booked out for some time. I want to go, I'm taking the time out of the day to go and do that. So that works for us. As long as I have everything booked in at least 2 weeks in advance, there is time to be made for most things.
Oh, that's great. That's the right attitude to take too. I'm the same way. I am never free within 48 hours, but I'm pretty much always free a couple weeks down the road. If you can, take the time to book it out, then I think that's a great way to look at it. So that's great. So then you do have the ability to block out some time regularly, and okay. And you're playing 2 to 3 times a week pretty regularly? Is that like a standard? And are those are they on the same days typically every week, or do you switch
Thursday
it up?
night, which is tonight for me, Sunday night, and then I may play a Friday, or I might sub around one of the games and play a bigger one on a weekend here. Just trying to hunt down one of the bigger games in Sydney.
So then you do have and what do you think is a realistic amount of study time if we wanted to like program in some for you? Are you the kind of person that it's better to do like half an hour or 45 minutes a day, 5 days a week, or are you better doing like 2 hours, 2 or 3 times a week, or what's your natural
I'd probably be
rhythm?
better off with the half hour to an hour, somewhere in there on most days. That would be far more achievable.
Okay.
Than big blocks, because there's just too many distractions.
And so then we get down to, so what are you going to be doing with that time? I think we're in an era now where training videos are very efficient. Like they're much more efficient now than they used to be. They can transmit knowledge better. People are getting better at marrying graphics and outputs from Flopzilla and solvers and stuff that you don't then have to do in real time. I mean, I still like reading books about poker, but it's more trying to get the most out of every minute. I do think like videos are probably the best way to go because you get to kind of see other people doing things in real time, gives you that immediate feedback. So I could see, not every day though, I think, because we want you to have some variety in what you're doing.
Yeah,
But
and also there needs to be some sort of flexibility in it, right? So, because obviously life gets in the way.
oh yeah, of course. Yeah. And so it's now you say you don't play online much, but you do play online a bit. Do you have
I would say most days.
Oh yeah,
but
okay.
But they may not be a very long stint online.
Yes.
Like I'm not grinding out hours online. I would say most afternoons or most nights. Like last night, I sat down to a little bit of Netflix and played a $5 tourney.
Yes.
That sort of thing. Or I might multi-table a cash game and play 2 cash games at once and just try to find those little spots where it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. Okay. Great. That's what I wanted to get at. Okay. Perfect. And I agree 100%. These days, if I'm like just doing paperwork or something, I'll throw up one table on a cash game or a cheap little tournament or something. Just because even Bluffsterini is still only playing like 30% of the hands most of the time, which means that you're folding most of the hands. So, and I play with a HUD, so I don't always have to, be paying attention to every second of the action because my HUD's going to track a lot of that anyway. So I can kind of dip in and out of it, which is really helpful. And just focus on the key decisions that are there. Do you use a tracking software like Poker Tracker or Hold'em Manager or anything like that?
I use Poker Tracker 4.
Oh, awesome.
Okay. I'm on GG Poker, which doesn't support it. And you can't do HUD. So the issue is in Australia, you can't really be on online poker.
Right.
And you need an intermediary to help out. So, and I won't play on, I don't know if I should say all this because if it gets all recorded, but I won't play on, I won't play on PP Poker.
Yeah.
Poker Bros, because I believe it's a Ponzi scheme. If everyone asks for all their money back in one go, I just don't believe it's there. So I don't mind playing on GG. I only play through, there's an intermediary here who helps out with all that sort of stuff. There's a bunch of young poker pros in Australia. But then again, when I'm on there, I'll play $5 tourneys, I'll play $3 tourneys, and I'll play a $10 no limit. Some cash. So that's the sort of stakes I'm playing.
And is there any way to get those hand histories? Like, is there a way?
Yeah, I've done that. Yep.
Okay.
It will download, but nothing comes up. You just can't play with anything live.
Okay, but you can still record the hand histories and review them yourself later?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that I think
25,000 hands in cash, I'm running positively.
Nice.
But that's it's not hugely positive, but it is what
dude, if you're running even marginally positive, you're already ahead of 85% of poker players in those games. So that's a huge accomplishment already, Troy. I think you should feel really proud of that. Lots of the people that I think of as like successful recreational poker players, they're break even, marginal winners, marginal losers. They're getting the pleasure from the game. And I think, making even just a little bit of money on it is just phenomenal. So good for you. And then obviously we want to make more money and we want to be more profitable. And, part of it's just because money is the way that we keep track of how much we're winning. Right. And we want to win. we like winning things. So, the money kind of is a way of keeping score as much as it is anything else. Like I think about, small business owners. It's very rare that outside of like big like jackpots in tournaments or anything, most of the money that we make playing recreational poker is just going to be beer money anyway. But it's that place of knowing how well you're doing, how versus how well you used to be doing, ragging on your
Hmm.
friends, whatever it is that that competition brings to you. So first of all, way to go. That's awesome to be better than break even player, even if it's just a marginal winner. Um, the other really good news about that is that I think using that database of hands in Poker Tracker to review your own hands, whether it's going back and just going through a particular tournament hand by hand, or drilling down and finding particular spots by position or stack depth or action in the hand. Um, just having those hands available to review is going to be a big asset to you.
Hmm.
I know you're gearing towards live play, and you're not going to be able to really analyze your live hands in the same way. But as you said earlier, like I think a lot of the spots do kind of line up, and you can learn, you can apply a lot of it from one to the other. So
Hmm.
I think I think right off the bat, I would recommend to you um, the one thing that I think would be really helpful for you. So Rec Poker has an affiliation with Sky Matsuhashi's thepokerforge.com. So that's his paid training site. And he does a bunch of good stuff there. And if anybody is interested, they can go to rec.poker/resources and they'll find a link to that. Um, I think in your case, uh, uh, he has a YouTube channel, Smart Poker Study YouTube channel, I believe, which has a bunch of free videos there. One of the playlists is called 66 Days of Hand Reading or 60 Days of Hand Reading or something like that. And he just does a video of each day. He does all these in a row. Um, he goes through a hand reading exercise that he uses his Poker Tracker 4 results to frame the whole thing in.
Hmm.
I think that would be a good exercise for you too. Uh, so he's got some free resources there. I think he's got, it's not like a workbook, but there's a couple sheets. Um, I'm just gonna actually just pull it up here while we're. And so it's just 66 days. Each video he does a day, he does a hand. A lot of them are sort of 15 to 25 minutes long, so it feels like that could be right in your wheelhouse. And I would want you to kind of go through this process with him and just like pause the video and make your own assumptions and then see how they line up with what he's saying. He uses Poker Tracker 4 to go through the hands, and then I think you would be able to then take that same approach and take that to your own review. I do
Okay.
think that split suit workbook that we were talking about earlier, that hand ranging one, that would be
Hmm.
good as well. And I know we're focusing a lot on hand reading and hand ranging, but it's because it's the process that is going to, by internalizing it, it's going to make it easier for you to study in all the other things I'm going to ask you to look at as
Okay.
we get further along. This is going to be the system, the process by which you start thinking about what are the factors in each hand I need to be thinking about. What's different now than on the next orbit or something like that. So I think that'd be really helpful. Um, we just finished recording the Rec Poker seminar on board textures. So that's going to drop the first week of February. I think that would be really helpful too, because that really gets into the idea of, as you referenced earlier, what kind of boards can I take this away from my opponent, regardless of the actual hands that I have. One of those spots where you actually get to make money instead of just trading it back and forth all the time. Um, and then, yeah, so then I guess I would challenge you, Troy, to kind of think about finding some time in the day when you're naturally in a flow where studying and working on this is going to be a good use of your time, and it's not when you're tired or cranky or stressed out about work or distracted by other things. It doesn't have to be the same time every day, but I find it's nice to have sort of some routine to it because it just kind of trains me to get into that rhythm. And then I would say just like for the next 2 weeks maybe, and maybe we could even just jump on another call 2 weeks from now and review. I would say try and take 5 days a week for 2 weeks. So that's 10 sessions. And try and spend, I don't know, 6 of them uh, going through either Sky's videos or working with the split suit course with that handbook. And then the other 4 actually getting into your own Poker Tracker 4 database, reviewing a tournament history, or maybe I've got some videos. If you go to rec.poker/gym and scroll down, there's some videos that I've got up there working with Poker Tracker 4. One of them's like a database analysis I did for a client, and you can see some of the ways to kind of filter that data and to drill down into it a bit. I think, yeah, I think it's going to be hard to know like what to drill down into other than just like looking at like maybe next time we talk you can pull up your database and I can take a quick look at some of the positional stuff and maybe we can find some specific areas to target. But I think just going hand by hand through it and seeing if there are things that you didn't notice in real time, that when you look at it as an objective observer, oh, that's a factor I should have been paying attention to or something. And then the most important thing, over these 2 weeks, I want you to keep a record of the spots that you found you were uneasy or uncomfortable or unsure or just didn't feel perfectly confident proceeding. And that'll be a lot, right? Like it should be. And then every time you, let's say, like calling too wide from the big blind, like that can be the root of a lot of problems, for instance. So if you notice that like, oh man, I keep doing this, like put a little tick next to it on your notes. And after a week, you look down, and you're like, wow, I got like 18 ticks next to this. This is something I really need to take more seriously. And for me, it was playing suited aces. I was such a sucker for suited aces. And I would I just call with them all the time in any position. It's like, I want that nut flush, baby. Bring on the nut flush. I'm going to play this so aggressively. And, it took kind of getting kicked in the junk a little to go back and say, oh, I'm actually losing money with like ace-6 suited. I should not be playing this the same way that I'm playing ace-5 suited, ace-10 suited, stuff like that. But you need a lot of hands in your database in order to get real information and not just false information, red herrings. So yeah, I would say that take 10 days, smart poker study, the post flop workbook, the hand funneling workbook, and going through your own Poker Tracker 4. How long into the past do you have Poker Tracker 4 hands? Like for how long have you been putting hands in that database approximately?
I can probably update it, but I think you can in GG Poker go back about 3 months. So
okay.
I think it's in rushing. So through the fast fold stuff, there's 25,000 hands
right
in the last 3 months. So it gives you an idea of my volume.
Yeah.
In normal poker on there's about the same. So just in normal Hold'em, and then there would be a number of 20s. So I don't mind playing the little 20s they have on there all the time.
That's great. So you've got enough in there that it's not going to be immediately predictable to you what happened in that hand because you've got enough other hands to worry, and you've got different formats, which is nice. So you can kind of pick what you want to work on in there. One thing that you might find helpful, particularly because when we're talking about playing in tournaments where people have predictable ranges and how that makes it easier to play against them. I like when I am really practicing my hand ranging, I like to go back into my database a bit and I turn off the setting that displays heroes' hands so that when you pull up the hand in the replayer, you actually don't know what your own hand was there. And I hand range myself. I think this is a really good way to practice hand ranging because generally what your ranges are going to be. You don't know what exact hand you have in your distribution, but you know roughly what your ranges are going to be in any spot. You're like, oh, okay, well, I opened from the hijack, so it's roughly this group of hands, or oh, I 3-bet out of the small blind, so it's roughly this, bunch of hands. And then do the steps that Split Suit and Sky recommend in your workbook, and just hand range yourself, and
Hmm.
see how accurate you are, see how natural you can get that process. And then when you start applying it to other people, the difficulty is just assigning them that range in the first place. And that's, that just takes doing it a lot, and being
Hmm.
wrong a lot, and you never get to be perfect, right? Like, perfect is not an option. So
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
like good enough is what you're aiming for. um, I think that even just that, if you took that off for the next 2 weeks, and longer, honestly, like, this could be something, if you enjoy the process, you could incorporate it into an ongoing study routine. But I think if you just get into that rhythm for 2 weeks or a little longer than that, that should at least tell you, am I finding this valuable? Is this the right kind of format for what I want to do? Um, is it the right use of my time?
Hmm.
And I think that would be a good place to start anyway.
All right. I'll finish, and at the same time, I'll also finish the post-flop workbook by Split Suit as well. I
Yeah,
haven't quite finished that
yeah,
yet.
yeah. And don't feel like, we talk about 2 weeks. Don't feel like there's a hard deadline there, and you have to, like,
Hmm.
get X done by then or whatever. Like life is what's important here. Poker is just how we have fun along the way. So,
No, no, completely get it.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, Great. Okay, well, I'm
Well, thank
excited,
you.
man. Yeah, let's follow up by email, and we can talk a little more about some of the bankroll stuff,
Hmm.
and let's set up another meeting a little further down the road, and we can review kind of how you did with that hand ranging stuff, and see what the next steps looks like. But I'm very encouraged by the email you sent me, Troy, and just talking with you. And we've talked before in the rec poker stuff as well. But
Hmm.
I mean, you're obviously a thoughtful, strategic player. You've got your head in the right space when it comes to studying and playing. I think you're going to crush these goals. We just got to give you the right game plan, and you got to stick with it. And I have no doubt you will. So I'm looking forward to once you're rich from all these big ticket tournaments, you can fly some rec poker people down to Australia, and show us all a good time. I'm looking forward to that. The Troy Chapman uh,
Invitational.
invitational. Yes, yes.
Well, awesome. So it looks like what we're going to do is, just to summarize,
Yeah,
I'm
please.
going to work on the post-flop stuff from Split Suit to finish that off.
Yep.
The thing I like about that is that it's also got a lot of stuff to start using with Flopzilla.
Oh, good.
Um,
Yes.
and so, and at the same time, I'll then get the underway with the hand reading, because I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the post flop workbook and the hand reading will very much complement each other.
They will. Yep.
Yeah.
They
And
absolutely
then,
will.
yeah, so I'll get that underway, and then in the meantime, I'll download the last however many hands in a poker tracker for, because out of GG poker, that's not exactly a straightforward process.
Yes, I've heard that. Yes.
Um, so I'll get onto that and just keep doing what I'm doing. Would you suggest that, from your perspective, and albeit it's only been 50 minutes, but is it worth my time doing those tourneys that are the nightly ones that run for 4 or 5 hours?
Mm.
Now, that was one of my questions, because that sometimes, um, apart from being a social aspect, like, you can go there just for socials and have fun and catch up with guys that I know. Is it worthwhile pursuing that as an ongoing arrangement? Or am I better off saying to the missus, I'm not going to play Thursday nights from now on. I'm now going to swap that. I'm home every night this week, but that means that every second week there's a $150
Hmm.
tourney down in Sydney, and I'm off. So you won't
Hmm.
see me at all on a Saturday.
Hmm.
Am I better off using my time like that, in your opinion?
It's a really good question. It's a really good question, because especially if the people in those tournaments that you're considering not playing in, if they're not if you're not learning good lessons in that game, then it might not be the best use of your time. Like, it's fun, right? But I do feel like prioritizing your time is important. And
Mhm.
so your playing time should be in the best playing situations for your improvement. And it's kind of that mix between the pleasure and the value of it. Like it's fun to play with those guys and to catch up. And you probably, as we were saying before, you probably like have a bigger edge there even. But if you're not actually working on being a better player there, I mean, I think there is an argument for saying I'd rather focus this on fewer tournaments that are I'm going to take more seriously, or I'm going to be, more focused for things like that. Like
but those edges that you may or may not have in a tournament that runs for 4 hours with maybe 150 hands, you can't exploit any edge.
It's a good point.
But you got to get your gamble on.
And so that's right. And that's fun. But I'm not. It's hard for me to say that you're like maximizing your poker learning time in that. So
Split Suit has a really good video about it, and it made me. I just stumbled across it, and he says that you'd be better off getting your hourly somewhere else, and that sounds to me like an absolute grinder's answer. That I'm worried about my hourly win rate. And personally, I'm not, right? I enjoy the game. All I want to do is make sure I have fun, but put myself into spots where I need to get better and better and better and try to hit that 550, that being the goal. I just don't know whether I'm better off spending that $75 twice a week on games where I know that the best players don't win.
Right.
I know that the guy who's limped his whole way through the tournament has almost just as good a chance at winning because the blinds are so turbo based. He just needs to get it in at the right point in time a few times, and the game's over.
Yeah, so I hear you, man. No, I think you're really onto something there. I really do, because opportunity cost is something that we don't talk about a lot, but it's real, man. Like none of us get to live forever. We only have so many days in a month, so many hours in a week, and you don't get them back. So, the opportunity
it's the one finite
cost
resource that we have.
Exactly. So if if you could be spending an hour doing real good study and taking notes and, preparing yourself for a more important tournament that you're going to be playing later that week or something, I think that probably is a better use of your time than some turbo donk fest, where it's fun. And you're still learning some things, like you're learning about short stack play, and but most of it's just going to be anecdotal. It's going to give you as many like negative ideas as positive ideas. When I was like, oh, I guess I shouldn't have done that. Well, no, it just didn't work out that one time when you get that 150 hands. So I think that's a really good insight, Troy. And I would prioritize that. I would take your time prioritization very seriously, because even in leisure, why wouldn't you want to just be the best leisure person as well, right? Get the most out of your leisure as you do with anything else. And so I really like that idea. And you'll know best where the lines are drawn for that too, right? But having that mindset, I think, is really important.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, my pleasure. Well, Troy, this was great. Email me. We'll talk about the other stuff, and we'll set up a call sometime in February. And I'll see you in the Reckies. I'm really looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks very much, Jim. Good on you. Thanks, mate.
Well, thanks for listening, folks. I had a great time talking with Troy about game selection, study plans, and how to make the most out of your time on and off the felt. If you're a premium member at rec.poker, you can email me, jim@rec.poker, and set up a little time in the rec room yourself. And if you're not, go to rec.poker anyway, get a free community account, and see what we're all about there. Join the forums, post questions to get reviewed on the podcast. You can play in the home games. We do free training videos all the time. There's lots of fun to be had there. I'd like to thank Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino, and our friends at Website Amp for making this possible, and my buddy Troy Chapman. All right, see you again soon, I hope, folks.